Hi there, it's Louise here of Timeless Craft Mama, and today I'm sharing a scrapbook layout process video with you created for my guest DT position with Funky Flair Studio. And I've titled this layout Cards. The inspiration came from the 4 flares that are all the suits in the deck of cards. So you've got your clubs, spades, diamonds and hearts. And what I also did was I collected just a cheap discount store set of cards, and I've used those in a couple of different layouts. So I thought I'd put together a process video for you for this one, just to show you the way that I would go about the inspiration for using this particular flair. So what I'm doing is I've taken a piece of craft pattern paper and I've traced around roughly in pen where I'm going to put this joker card and also the photo. Now the reason I've traced it roughly in pen is because I actually want that to sort of be a little bit of a feature for where the photos will actually sit. And also it just makes it nice and easy so I can work around it when I'm adding my layers for this mixed media page. So the first step was then to add the stencil. Actually, I'll go back to that. Let me talk you through what I'm doing here first. So all I'm doing is just with that fluid chalk edger, there was lots of that left on the stencil. So I've just sprayed some water on it and just tipped the stencil upside down and patted it onto the watercolor paper that I just keep in a pad off to the side so that I can use it for backgrounds or just playing with textures or elements as I please. So you can see there that I've just taken some first layer, which was red acrylic paint, and I've applied that through a stencil, and then I've used the fluid chalk edger through a different stencil, which is the wording one, and that was just with black, and then I've used some of the leather Colour Blast paste through another stencil, and that was to get that sort of clock and the circular kind of elements. Now I've added some brown splatters, so just some brown ink splatters, and I've dried those with the heat gun, because what I then want to do is add some more brown splatters and then use just water to move those splatters around just a little bit. So you can't quite see the effect, but as I'm adding the water and the splatters, you can see that they are a bit more fluid. They don't necessarily dry so harsh. Now, of course, a mixed media layout always has some texture stamps, so I'm going ahead and I'm stamping some black and some brown because those are the two sort of elements that I'm using in this layout. 2 different stamps, and then also just this circular stamp again for that circle kind of element, and that will I didn't want that to be textural, I actually wanted that to stand out a little bit. Now because I'm sort of going for a card theme and I had this diamond sort of pattern in the background, I wanted some diamond texture. So I'm using 2 Crafty chipboard, and I'm just going to put some embossing ink on that, and then I'm going to emboss it with 2 different colours, so white and then a silver. And there wasn't really any reason for this, just that I knew I wanted that embossing that embossed chipboard to just stand out a little bit. So I didn't make it in the same colour as what I actually made the rest of the layout. So you could, if you choose to scrap lift this layout, you could certainly do them brown, you could do them red, you could do them whatever colour you like. But for me personally, I chose the white because I wanted them to just pop off that page just a little bit more. Now again, they're not really that structured as far as those chipboard pieces are concerned. It's just following it as this particular layout takes me. Now that I've finished adding mixed media elements to that page, I'm going to go ahead and mount it on some other card just to flatten it out a little bit so I can start to put the final touches on the page. And I'm really liking the way this background is looking. You know, this was one of those layouts where I had these flare buttons and I knew I wanted to make a video, but really I was just following how I felt as I popped elements on the page. So I fiddled around with a few things. You know, I didn't initially plan to have that little cluster up in the top right hand corner, but I think that the balance of this page is good, and there's some white space, there's some interest, there's different elements around the page that all come together and create quite an effective layout. Now, part of the other inspiration for this page was the photo. My little guys did actually discover themselves a deck of cards, and for a little while there, it actually kept them really amused. So I took a picture of them with some cards in their hands, and it was a really great photo to use on a playing card inspired layout. So things that I've done there that I haven't talked you through, I have just taken some black acrylic paint and just used my finger to smudge that around the Joker card and around the photo as well, purely just because they looked a bit stark on the page. You know, I had lots of things going on the page, and I really wanted to grunge them up a little bit. So I've done that. Now I've also just taken some watered down gesso and I've splattered that around my page as well, just to add some white element in order to break up that mixed media background that I've got going on. So this is coming together really well. I just need a little bit more texture element, so I'm going to take some plasterer's tape, and again I've also added the cheesecloth too. So you could have coloured the cheesecloth, you could add some sprays around all that texture later, but for me I wanted this to sort of feel quite raw, and I've used elements within my stash to actually highlight different areas, or in this case not so much areas, but the actual flare buttons themselves, and you can see how the theme of this page has come together. So I'm just using some matte gel just to attach all those elements, the chipboard, the cheesecloth, and those really cool flare buttons. So if you haven't checked out Funky Flair Studio, make sure you have a look at them, because there is so much cool stuff. And maybe you only want to use one flare here and there on a page. Maybe you want to use a whole lot of them. Maybe in this case you want to use the collection and really highlight a memory. So definitely check them out and have a look at some of their products, because they've got lots of cool stuff. And it's not just flares, they've got die cuts and lots of fun things, collections going on in their store as well. So the only other thing that I've added to this page to finish it was the twine elements, and again in their raw form, because I didn't want to detract too much from the elements that I'd already built. And then thickers to give my title. I haven't videoed the journaling process, but you can see in the final product the journaling that I've added telling the story of this page. So thank you for visiting and thank you for watching. Don't forget to check out Funky Flair Studio and subscribe.